Welcome Hex and Counter players to my introduction to GMT games, MBT, and the third video in our look at the advanced rules. An exciting day today as we have a look at Infantry, the military athletes of the battlefield. So we have in MBT squads and half squads and sections. A section can be heavy machine gun, anti-tank guided missile, man-pad or anti-air, or other. Above their respective data cards are the squad and half squad counters, and along the left-hand edge is the heavy machine gun section at the top, followed by the anti-tank guided missile counter, the man-pad counter, and the other section. In the upper left of each counter is the national identification, and in the upper right is the individual identification number. On the top of the card is the national identification, followed by the card code and the description: squads, half squads and sections. Below this are the movement factors. So for a squad or half squad, M for movement is 2 hexes cross country, L standing for leg, and they can move 3 in quick march mode. TR is for transport. It is printed in reverse font to show that these units are passengers. It has 0 capacity to be towed, and for a squad requires 2 points of transport. A half squad requires 1. And I'm sure you can figure out section for yourself. Below this is the offensive information, and to the left is the type of unit or configuration of the infantry unit. A little bit different from the vehicles is you have R for range, and instead of P for penetration there is F for factor or fire factor. And below this is the defensive information. Note that all towed and infantry units are target type S. Flipping the squad card reveals the crew served weapons data card. Take note of the ammo type ranges from GP general purpose, armour piercing and anti-aircraft. The Soviet player has an additional infantry support weapon card which features the SPG-9 anti-tank gun and the NSV heavy machine gun. Let's have a closer look at transport. If you have a look at the M2A1 Bradley card, you'll notice there on the M movement line, about the middle there is TR for transport. It has no capacity to tow, but it has 2 points of passengers it can take. As I'm sure you remember, in the squads under transport, a squad was 2 points and a half squad 1 point. So that's where you get your capacity to be transported from. Passengers mounting a transport unit is discussed in 66711. Passengers must have a move command, be adjacent or in the same hex as the transport, and passengers expend their entire MP mounting. Dismounting is also covered in 66711. Passengers may dismount adjacent to or in the transport unit's hex. It spends its entire MP doing so, and it is marked with a spot move marker. So the mounting and dismounting is quite a straightforward process, and it doesn't really matter what command the transport unit has. Continuing our discussion on the movement phase, we'll now move to close assault combat, detailed in 6.6.1.1. Eligible leg units engage vehicles using close combat. To close assault, dismounted leg units must have a move command. There are different types of assault. The advancing assault. The assaulting unit must be adjacent to the defender. An advancing assault is when a unit spends one movement point to move adjacent to the target. Each assaulting leg unit may only attack one vehicle. Although the attacking units are technically firing, they are marked with spot move counters. The dismount close assault. Passengers may dismount and then immediately close assault an adjacent unit. Although close assault takes place during the movement phase, it does not trigger overwatch fire, the exception being the advancing attack or close assault. How to resolve a close assault. 6.6.1.1.1. All leg units use common GP factors based on the size of the unit. So a squad close assault would be 8 points, a half squad 4, and a section 2. These common factors are highlighted on the GP Combat's results table, game card A. Below the GP Combat results table is the close assault modifiers, which we'll talk about in a moment, and just note that next to that is the hand-to-hand modifiers, which we'll talk about in the future. So let's work our way through a close assault sequence using a Soviet motor rifle squad close assaulting an M2A1 Bradley. 66112 close assault combat modifiers. These are similar to the hit modifiers that you've used before, so there shouldn't be anything too new here regarding using the modifier table. So for our exercise today, we're just going to presume the modifiers equal each other out and the total ends up being 0. The next step is to identify the GP defence factor on the defender's vehicle data card, which for the Bradley is 3. This is then cross-referenced on the GP combat results table with the assaulting unit's GP factor, which in this case is 8. This gives us two factors, an N factor of 31 and an S factor of 63. The assaulting player then rolls 100 and applies the modifiers. So no effect, equal to or less than N effect. So if the roll in our example is 31 or less, there is no effect. The assaulted unit will be suppressed if the modified roll is equal to or less than the S effect, but greater than the N effect. So between the 31 and 63. The assault is effective if the modified roll is greater than the S effect. So greater than 63. If the terminal digit on the roll is 5 or a 0, the assaulted unit will have track hit or damaged. Otherwise, the result will be knockout or brew up. To determine the final result, the attacker rolls 1d10. If the final modified result ends in 5, the target vehicle is damaged. If the result is equal to or less than 4, place a turret damage counter on it or otherwise hull damaged, obviously 5 or greater. If the terminal digit is 0, the vehicle has suffered a track hit, so place the appropriate marker. If the terminal digit was not 5 or 0, there's a 1d10 roll. If the result is 50% or less of the assaulting squad's GP factor, it's a brew up, otherwise knockout. So in our example, we used a squad, its GP factor was 8, so 1 to 4, brew up, otherwise knockout. So that is the meat and potatoes of a close assault combat. There's still some nice bits for you to dig out of the manual, but if you get this concept under your belt, that shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. To summarise, close assault is when a leg unit assaults a vehicle. When a leg unit assaults another leg unit, that is called hand-to-hand combat, and we'll have a look at that now. The preamble to hand-to-hand resolution is very similar to close assault, including concepts such as the advanced attack and the dismounted attack. So I'll invite you to check that at your own leisure. The hand-to-hand combat resolution is different to close assault, so we'll need to have a close look at that. Unlike other forms of combat, both sides get to roll 100 and modify the result according to the hand-to-hand combat modifiers. That's 6, 6, 1, 22. So the modifiers are all fairly straightforward, so I'm sure you'll have no problems there. A good method of understanding hand-to-hand combat is working through the example on page 39. So a US mech infantry squad and a mech inf half squad, both veteran unit grade, in a woods hex are attacking a Soviet motor rifle squad, regular unit grade, in a woods hex at a range of 1 hex. Both sides are at the same height. The US units have a move command. The Soviet unit has an overwatch command. The US player is the first player. The US side resolves its attack. The US player designates the squad as the primary attacker. Since the US units are at a range of 1 hex, overwatch fire is not triggered. The US player determines that the net modifier is plus 20 as a result of the following modifiers: additional half squad sized attacker plus 10, veteran unit grade plus 10 for plus 20. The Soviet player determines that their net modifier is minus 10 as a result of the following modifier: regulars unit grade minus 10. The US player rolls 100, the result is 13, so the net roll is 33, 13 plus 20. The Soviet player rolls 100, the result is 65, so the net roll is 55, 65 minus 10. Since the Soviet player 55 is greater than the US player 33, the US squad is reduced to half squad. The hand-to-hand combat continues. The US player must recalculate the net modifier as a result of the loss of the half squad. It is now minus 5 as a result of the following modifiers. Half squad, the primary attacking unit is now a half squad, minus 25. Additional half squad sized attacker plus 10. Veteran unit grade plus 10. The Soviet side's net modifier is unchanged at minus 10. The US player rolls 100. The result is 72. So the net roll is 67. 72 minus 5. The Soviet player rolls 100. The result is 51. So the net roll is 41. 51 minus 10. Since the US player's 67 is greater than the Soviet player's 41, the Soviet squad is reduced to a half squad. The hand-to-hand combat continues. The US side's net modifier is unchanged at -5. The Soviet player must recalculate the net modifier. It is now -35 as a result of the following modifiers. Half squad, now motor rifle half squad, -25. Regulars unit grade, -10. The US player rolls 100. The result is 48. So the net roll is 43. 48 minus 5. The Soviet player rolls 100. The result is 62. So the net roll is 27. 62 minus 35. Since the US player's 43 is greater than the Soviet player's 27, the Soviet half squad is eliminated. The US player won the hand-to-hand combat. The US player decides to occupy the Soviet hex with just one of the half squads. Both the US half squads are marked with spot move counters. Right, so I think that's a pretty good example of hand-to-hand combat. So if you get lost with that one, just reread that and the section preceding it, and I'm sure that'll clarify it for you. A related form of combat to hand-to-hand combat and close assault is the overrun attack, which is performed by vehicles. So once again, I think we'll just work our way through the example provided on page 43. A Soviet 262 MV, veteran unit grade, located in a clear hex, is overrunning a spotted US heavy mech infantry half squad located in a scrub hex at a range of 3 hexes. Both units are at the same height. The T-62 has a move command. The half squad has an overwatch command. The US player is the first player. In the movement step, the second player moves first. The tank expends 4 of its movement speed allowance entering the half squad's hex, 2 for a clear hex and 2 for a scrub hex. It has 1 of its movement speed allowance remaining to exit the US hex if desired. Since the tank is 3 hexes from its intended target, overwatch fire could be triggered. The half squad takes overwatch fire as the tank enters the adjacent hex, P7. It does not have any attached crew-served weapons. At a range of 1 hex, the half squad's GP factor is 6. The GP range factor is P, point blank. The tank's GP defence factor is 7A. The GP fire modifiers are now checked for any effect. The net modifier is -35 as a result of the following modifiers: target vehicle moving, defensive fire, -10, target A-type vehicle, -20, and overwatch -5. The GP factor 6 column on the GP combat table is cross-referenced with the GP defence factor of 7. The two numbers found are 57 for the N effect and 87 for the S effect. The US player rolls 100. The result is 83. So the net roll is 48. 83 minus 35. Since 48 is less than 57, it has no effect. At first glance, this seems like a wasted shot. It is not. Had the tank been suppressed, it would not have adequate movement speed allowance remaining to enter the half squad's hex. 5 minus 2 equals 3, or half of 3 equals 1, rounded down. The tank continues moving and enters the US occupied hex. At a range of 1 hex, the tank's GP factor is 7. The GP range factor is P point blank. Its HMG is not included since it is an AA weapon. The half squad's GP defence factor is 4S. The GP fire modifiers are now checked for any effect. The net modifier is plus 30 as a result of the following modifiers: coax MG plus 10, overrun combat plus 20. The GP factor 7 column on the GP combat table is cross-referenced with the GP defence factor of 4. The two numbers found are 40 for the N effect and 71 for the S effect. The Soviet player rolls 100. The result is 42, so the net roll is 72. 42 plus 30. Since 72 is greater than 71, it is an effective result. The half squad is eliminated and removed from the map board. Since the US unit was eliminated, the T-62 could remain in the hex. However, it decides to exit the hex. It is marked with a spot move counter. So in summary, to say that we've gone over a lot of material in this video is an understatement. And don't get too fussed if you can't pick everything up on the first run. Eventually you'll see that there's a recurring pattern occurring. So just get on the board, move a few counters around, conduct a few attacks, and you'll see it'll come together pretty quickly. So that may be it for the infantry section of my presentation, which perhaps next time we'll have a look at artillery. So back to the rule book and some reading for me. So I hope this helps your gaming. Enjoy your gaming, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.